Now by national political correspondent Steve Kornacki to take us through all of the numbers. Steve, a lot of headlines here.
Certainly, Kristen. I mean, you're looking at the biggest. Harris 49, Trump 44, 5-point advantage for Harris in this poll against Donald Trump. And if we zoom out here and look at the bigger significance of this finding, you know, we've been polling the 2024 race going back to last year. And you can see here, these are all the results on the left side of the screen from when Joe Biden was still the Democratic candidate. And now you see this is our first poll since Harris switched in, and look at that result.
You can see that the race has been completely reshaped since Harris took the top of the ticket.
Completely. And one of the things powering that lead we should note, too, there's a pretty pronounced gender gap at this point. Harris among women is leading in our poll by 21 points. Among men, Trump is leading by 12. That is a 33-point gender gap. That's enormous what we're seeing right here. Take a look at this, too. The debate, of course, happening in the last couple of weeks. Nearly 30% saying that debate made them more likely to support Harris. Much smaller number for Trump. That might be helping her as well here. And then there's this. The View, the overall perception of Kamala Harris. Remember, before she got in the race, a lot of talk that, you know, her numbers didn't look better than Biden's. She was 32 positive, 50 negative before getting in this race. And now this is what you see.
And we have to pause here because this is the largest increase that we have seen for any politician since George W. Bush in the wake of the September 11th attacks on this issue.
Absolutely, Kristen. I mean, we were seeing numbers like this for years for Kamala Harris. Now you're seeing a very different story. And what goes into that new level of popularity she has? Take a look here. If we can, there it is. Call this up here. Some of the groups that have gravitated the most towards Harris, just in terms of favorable, look at this. Black voters, 24-point increase. Independents, 20. Young voters, 26. Young voters, this is a group where Joe Biden, when he was still in, he was putting up very, very poor numbers for a Democrat with. Harris, you could see a 26-point jump there in her favorable score among voters under 30. And then look at it this way. Just put it in comparison with Biden and then with all of the other national candidates this year. She's the only one, Kamala Harris, right now in our poll with a higher positive score than a negative score. Compare that to Trump. And by the way, at the bottom of this list, look at J.D. Vance, Trump's running mate, the lowest positive score.
But you have to look at that 53% for Trump, the highest negative rating of everyone here.
There it is. Yeah, the only one over 50% majority there. Take a look at some of the issues here. We ask folks, what is the most important issue here? You've got inflation, you know, number one here. Also the economy. I mean, add together, you know, inflation and the economy. You're talking about 40% of the electorate citing that. And take a look at this. A lot of positive news here for Democrats and for Kamala Harris. But if you're a Republican looking at these numbers, look back to October 2020. It's very similar. You know, we say Harris has jumped into a 3-point, you know, net positive rating. That's where Joe Biden was in October 2020. Trump is pretty much in the same place, a little bit worse in terms of views of him as 2020. But here's the other difference. In 2020, Trump was the incumbent president. 60% of people thought the country was on the wrong track. Now Harris is part of an incumbent administration, and 2/3 say the country's on the wrong track. In 2020, Trump came within really a handful of votes in a few states of winning in that in the Electoral College. You know, as the challenger against the incumbent administration, maybe overall not that much of a different setup here. Certainly in the Electoral College, within reach for him.
Just fascinating findings, Steve, with just 6 weeks to go.
Here it is. Thank you, Kristen.
Until the election, Vice President Kamala Harris holds a 5-point lead over Donald Trump, 49% to 44% among registered voters. While that number is within the margin of error, it also shows a pronounced shift towards Democrats since July, before President Biden left the race. These new numbers come as the election is already in progress, folks. You know it. If you're in Virginia, Minnesota, or South Dakota, you're already voting early, and that's good. Buckle up, folks. I'm telling you, this presidential race, in nearly 2 years of preparation and run-up, is in its final stretch. It's time to bring it all home. And helping us bring it all home, joining us in wherever he is, I don't know, man. You're not at the table.
Because he's a real reporter.
You're not at the table. MSNBC political contributor and White House correspondent for Politico, Eugene Daniels, the head of the White House Correspondents Association. This brother's doing it all. He's out there on the campaign trail. I'm just going to sit back and let the ladies just work this conversation.
Eugene, can we just, Michael, I feel like set the stage very well. And we always caution folks here, even though NBC News, we got excellent polling, but polls don't vote, people do. And so you've been out there on the campaign trail. Can you just take us into the window of what you've been seeing and what your reporting is telling you? Again, 44 days out from Election Day, but understanding in some states people have already started voting.
Yeah, some of the things that's in this poll I've been seeing over and over again out on the campaign trail, 16 points in favorability, the way that people think about Vice President Harris in this poll, right? That's 16 points in her favor. And you see that when you go out on the campaign trail. People, one, as you very well know, Simone, didn't really see the vice president as much as they have been seeing her now for obvious reasons. It was her job to kind of stay to the side and kind of let President Biden, her then running mate, have the spotlight. And so they're hearing from her in a different way. They're hearing a person that has kind of turned into this as her allies, like they say, kind of a better political figure, right? Has better political instincts, or at least political instincts that people are finally starting to see. So that's one. I think people are she's starting to give a little bit more detail. I think people want more. Every time I talk to people, they want to see more detail and more details from her. But she has her economic plan out there. She's focusing on that because her campaign, as she knows, that is the thing that people care the most about. And the thing that I found really fascinating when you are just talking to people is that they will bring up, and the campaign has brought this up a lot too, is Project 2025. And these are regular voters who don't go through all the political machinations that we do, or that folks that are watching often do. They know the kinds of things that are in that, and they don't like it. And so you see Donald Trump trying to work to figure out how to run away from that, despite the fact that a lot of the folks that are around him or have been around him and are probably going to be around him if he were to win, were involved in it. And so that is kind of where it is. But Donald Trump is stronger than he was in 2020. He's stronger than he was in 2016. And I think that's something that the Harris campaign and Democrats should not take for granted. They should really focus on that, because otherwise they're going to feel a little too good going into November 5th.
So in this final stretch, one of the things the Harris campaign we now know would like to see is a second debate. I want you to take a listen to what Donald Trump has to say about that.
The problem with another debate is that it's just too late.